Welcome to Mega Gaming, and today we're going to be looking at two versions of the same game in this review, and this time they're going to be scored separately, but I'm going to combine it into one video because the two games are similar enough and I don't feel like doing a shorter review on the second version. Also, I decided to do that because I was playing the PC version of this game. Realized that the gameplay wasn't as good as the Sega Genesis one. Decided to play the Sega Genesis one instead. The game is Golden Axe. It's a weapons-based 2.5D beat 'em up style game developed by Sega, and it was first released May 1989. And there was a re-release which I have not played. So what you do in the game is you pick your character. You have 3 different characters. You have an battle axe wielding dwarf. You have a male barbarian who has a 2-handed broadsword. And then you have a longsword wielding person as well. You also have magic that you can use, which does vary to a limited degree depending on the character. So, you go through the level, you beat up stuff. Rather simple gameplay. So let's get the footage up. And I haven't played this game in quite a while. I'm going to show the initial footage, where I didn't do so well, but it shows the start of the game. The game has about 6 levels, and can be, if a skilled player could blast through this game rather quickly. But there is a lot of strategy to it. There are certain attacks you can kind of cheese to make the game easier, but if you avoid those and decide to just play the game without exploiting the bad AI in the game at times, it's quite a fun game to play. Now let's go ahead and get this up and running. And I want to demonstrate the music on here for the DOS version. That'll be coming up pretty soon. The graphics are quite good on both versions, with the Sega Genesis one having graphics that are less pixelated. Here's the DOS version. The problem is that you're using the keyboard for this, it does get it is quite problematic trying to use a keyboard to control a game like this. You really do need to get it set up with a gamepad. And when you do get the gamepad set up, it does play quite well, but it's still a bit... It seems like the frame rate is lower in this version than the Sega Genesis version. That's both in DOSBox and on a computer actually. Running DOS, it's more akin to what somebody would be playing it on back then. I love the rendition of the theme. It's definitely a different... It's using different hardware, and it's definitely a different take on this theme, but it captures the same general feeling you get from the original. The problem with the DOS version isn't so much the graphics are fine. The music is just almost as good as the original. It's a different rendition though. It sounds slightly different, but it still captures the same. It helps with creating the same general setting and feeling. You have the same animals you can ride, you have the same attacks. But with the DOS version, the frame rate does seem to be slower, which does affect the ability to actually play the game. It is rather choppy. It's not the worst port I've seen of a game, but it could have been done better. It's still fun, but it's at times quite frustrating. So I'll go ahead and let I'm going to let the DOS version play out, and then that'll be the Sega Genesis version. With the Sega Genesis version, the controls are pretty spot on. It's not the smoothest playing game ever made, but it's still fun. The controls are responsive. You can do jump attacks with ease. You can do all the attacks without any real issue. It's responsive. The enemies sometimes have terrible AI though, where you can kind of back them in a corner or line them up in a row and then just do jump attacks, especially if you have the axe-wielding dwarf. There's a backstory of the game. The warriors are bent on getting revenge against a vile dictator named Dictator. He took over the land of Uria and murdered their friend and partner Alex. So they're out for revenge, and that's where they're going. And who they're fighting are the Dictator's minions. It's a very basic story, but it is a story where it makes you want to actually go in there and get rid of this guy. Dictator sounds like a bad character, and it's very plausible that these people would, during this time period, would want to go on the heroic quest to not only save the land of Uria, but also get revenge for the death of their friend. It's quite impressive on the Sega Genesis version where they have the bigger sprites on there. There's a lot of games that try to do large sprites on the Genesis that failed quite miserably. Games like Sword of Sodan where you get a huge sprite but the animations are so slow that it really takes away any of the benefit of having the larger sprites. However, that game had more problems than just the bad animation. So, we'll get this. So I think that, yep, that is all the footage for that, I believe. So you have the Sega Genesis version. It's quite fun to play. It's only 6 levels. The controls are basic. But you can ramp up the difficulty. You can change how much health you have. And you can customize the game to make it pretty much as difficult as you'd like. It takes a gameplay that's very basic, provides a story and setting that's very basic, and out of it created quite a classic game that everybody should play. It's a game that I enjoyed as a child. I used to play it on a 6-pack cartridge on the Sega Nomad when I'd go on trips. And for the Sega Genesis version, I'm going to give that game a B. But as far as the DOS version goes, the DOS version with the wonkier controls and other gameplay issues will get a C+. So I'll let the review play out with some demonstration of the first level of the Sega Genesis version with the sound and music. And anyway, hope you enjoyed the review. It is a game I do recommend. You can pick up Golden Axe for the Sega Genesis quite cheap. The PC version is harder to find, but there's been numerous re-releases that, as long as they didn't do too much to change the game, will be quite adequate to play. So, hope you enjoyed the review. Please like, subscribe, and have a great day.